Tottenham Hotspur have appointed Thomas Frank as their new head coach.
And the consistency and the players know the patterns. But of course I'm aware that we need to be flexible sometimes.
You look what Thomas Frank has done over the course of 7 highly successful years, and you can understand why Tottenham would be interested.
Welcome into the Tottenham Depot. This is episode 252. I am your host, Andrew. You can follow me at Astetka. You can follow us at Tottenham Depot. I've got Scott alongside to talk about some Tottenham Hotspur this week. He's at Scott G. Bird. Scott, what's going on, my friend?
First of all, the way you came in with the welcome to the Tottenham Depot, it really sounded like welcome to the big show. Like you had it
I was ready for it, man. I had just had my sip of tea there during the intro, and I was ready for a little bit of voice. You know, I have this new job where I'm talking all day, and then I came to the end of my work week this week, and I've just been talking and talking to. So I'm having a little tea with the podcast tonight, a little honey,
there you go.
Little touch of whiskey in there, soothe the throat. So I appreciate the kudos for my welcome in.
Wow.
Yeah. How's it going, man?
Yeah, it's good. I will say that you talk to people all day, and I talk to a 7-month-old all day, every day. So it's really nice to talk to.
To be fair, I think the intelligence is probably on the same level sometimes with my job. So, but fair enough.
Fair enough. Well, yeah, it's good to talk to a couple adult humans. I'm glad to be here with you guys today.
Yeah. The other gentleman with us here is, of course, Mr. TC. Todd is here. He's at TC_show. TC, what's up, my man?
Any day, brother. Any day you can get together with your mates and talk about a fucking Tottenham Hotspur victory before an international break is a good fucking day. That doesn't happen very often around these parts. At least it hasn't prior to the arrival of one Mr. Thomas Frank. It's good news, dude. It's. I mean, I don't want to talk about it too loudly, right? Because I feel. Listen. I don't want to talk about it too loudly because I've been down this road before with this very club. And I know, I'm looking at 16 members out on international duty or whatever the hell it was, and I'm over here going fingers and toes crossed, just holding our collective breath, making sure everybody comes back healthy. We'll get into it, man, but there's a lot to be excited about right now.
It is ridiculous that we have so many international breaks. Of course, this will be the last regular October one for a while because FIFA made a bunch of changes that are going to extend the length of the international break next year, but it will be fewer of them. All in all, I think it's probably a decent move because it leaves some more space for league games.
Yeah.
But we'll see how that all works out. But yeah, the international break snuck up on me this time, man. I'm not going to lie. And when they broke the streak on Saturday, I was like, okay, I'm glad that monkey's off our back. Now what's next? And I think that's kind of going to be the theme of what I want to talk to you guys about when we break down these two matches that we saw on the men's side today. We're going to break down the women's match as well. They're off to still another great start in the WSL2. We've got some news and notes. We're going to open up the notebook and go through that too. We are recording this, just for context, on Monday evening once again here in the States. So anything that pops news-wise after, you know why. Guys, let's jump into the Leeds game because, like I said, I was not super duper confident about this match. We knew coming in that Leeds had this long unbeaten run at home dating back to September of last year. And granted, that's in the championship mostly, but still, I respect it. Leeds is a tough place to go typically. And I thought Spurs just showed a lot of gumption with the way that they played in this match. Scott, what was your overall impression of this one? Because I know there's a lot of word out there in the Spurs universe that this was a really bad performance and kind of a lucky victory, but I see it a little bit differently than that. I'm curious how you feel.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you go away in the Premier League and you win, it's a great game. I think it's very easy as a fan, and obviously I'm not directing this at either of you. I'm just talking in general that when I say that as a fan, it's so easy to, especially when you're one of the, we'll say the big six, regardless of what the league looks like right now. I think you can, I use the word entitled, right? Start to feel entitled at times. I definitely did it under Pochettino when we, especially that 86-point year, right? But I have to remind myself that it's the best league in the world, the most competitive, fierce, physical league in the world, and every player says that. It's not just a Premier League fan, showing bias. So yeah, all that to say, when you go away in the Premier League and you win 2-1, it can't be anything but a good performance. And people are going to pick things apart and point out negatives, but that's really just kind of the modern football fan, right?
TC,
Fuck
what do you
Leeds.
think, man? Fuck Leeds.
Fuck
That's
Leeds.
it?
They're assholes. They got what they deserved. If we're being 100 about it, there's ebbs and flows in games, and my friend Andrew likes to call it the rubs of the green or whatever the hell. But there were definitely points of that game where they were kicking lumps out of us, and the referee was picking his nose. So the fact that we got out of there with a victory in the way that we did just shows the guile and the fight of this club, and I was very happy with it. A couple of points, obviously, we need to come on to. Is first off, I feared no Joe Roden-led defense. Sorry. Secondarily, no, man. When you look at the goal that we gave up, this is going to be the unpopular talking point, and it has to be said, Andrew. The discussion is getting louder. The discussion is getting louder. And I agree. I had a conversation the other day that surprised even myself. I literally just got a couple of this man's kits in the mail today because my kids love him. But if we're going to win anything bigger than a Europa League trophy, Vicario's not good enough.
I think there's something to be said for Vicario. He's obviously, there's been 4 mistakes leading directly to a goal, and I think we've allowed 5 goals. That's not good. And he's supposed to be a really good shot stopper. He does make these mistakes. We've seen a lot. Granted, I'll say he's been let down a lot by his defending in front of him. And that's not the case for this goal in particular. I'm not letting him off the hook, but it's tough, man. I think it's an interesting conversation to be had, and I think it's one that I mean, look, you said the opinion is going to be unpopular. You know how I've felt about Vicario. I've always felt that there's another level that he would need to get to be a really elite keeper. I don't think he will be able to get to that level. What I'm most interested in is if Kinski is able to get to a level from a shot-stopping standpoint where he can leapfrog him. That's what I'm interested in.
Okay, I appreciate that. First off, so far, Tony Kinski's doing big things for my confidence when it comes to his ability to sooner rather than later step into that role. So, granted, it's against Doncaster Rovers so far this season or whatever the shit, but like, I think we've got something special going on with Kinski. The issue that I have with Vicario, Andrew, is that what's wrong right now is what was wrong when we bought him. And we said this on this very podcast. Hey, the only thing I don't really like about this guy is that instead of catching the ball in his saves, he often parries and gives up second chances. And that's exactly what the fuck we're talking about. That's the only reason why Leeds scored a goal at the weekend.
It's true.
Is because Vicario didn't catch the save. He parried it away, and what's-his-nuts was standing there going, hey, Merry Christmas to me, and it's 1-1.
It's true. I totally agree with you, and it is something that we've seen from him. Or it's almost like, why are defensive backs? Well, because they couldn't catch the ball. They used to be wide receivers, and they can't catch the ball, so now they're defensive backs. And it's like, is that Vicario's problem? He can tip it, he just can't catch it. I don't know, but
I don't know, dude. I look at it way more, Andrew, as like a from a baseball perspective. Like, you got a hitch in your swing, right? You can't hit the curveball. Like, you can do a lot of things great, but once people figure out all you got to do is pepper him with shots from outside the box, and he spills a bunch of them, crash the net. Like it then all of a sudden, you can say he got let down by his defense, but how many of those are because he didn't just catch the goddamn ball?
Yeah. It's a problem.
Look, Vicario, he has his qualities that are positive, as you both said. I think Brighton and Wolves are both losses without Vicario, and
Agreed.
Bodo Glimt is a loss without Vicario. he's come up.
Agreed.
Excuse me. He's come up big enough this season for us to pay our respects and recognize that, he's not a slouch, right? He is a great shot stopper, and sure, that could have been parried to the left. It wasn't. That's also a point blank shot. I mean, I I think that there's a very fine line between overcomplicating things with our takes here, right? It could have been better, but it wasn't like a shot from like 30 yards out either, right? Is all I'm saying. So,
Sure,
um,
sure.
but I will also say, and I say this as someone who's a huge fan. He's Italian, right? That always means more to me. He's capped by the Azzurri numerous times at this point,
Fair.
but we missed
Part of
out
the
on David
leadership
Raya.
council.
He is, but we missed out on David Raya, and we found Vicario for 13.9 million euros from Empoli, if I'm not mistaken, right? And Empoli barely had survived relegation. Now, Vicario was probably why they survived relegation, right?
Yes.
Again, respect to Vicario, but we paid 13.9 million euros. And not that money always equates to talent, but my point is there is a difference between Vicario and Mike Maignan, who would cost around $50 million probably, right? And I say that name because it could be one that we hear in the future, right? I think it's more than just a random name, but all that to say, Vicario is not a world-class elite keeper. He's a good keeper, and I don't know how far that takes you.
I want to get back quickly to the Leeds match because the two goal scorers for Spurs, one of them, Mathys Tel, who I think we've seen struggle throughout the start of the season a little bit, but now I think we're going to see a scenario where we're probably going to see Mathys Tel play a lot of the Premier League games and Richarlison play at midweek because obviously Tel is not in the Champions League squad, and Thomas Frank also seems to really be taking a liking to Mathys Tel. They seem to be, there's been some words spoken and some nods of the head given, I think, in between those two. And on the Richarlison side of things, quite honestly, I think he looked leggy. And that's to be fair, he's played a lot already in the early part of the season, and he's a guy who has a history of looking leggy if he plays a lot.
And pigeons have such short legs.
Exactly. But I was really happy for Mathys Tel to get off the schneid, and even though it was a deflected goal, whatever, it's still his goal. And the other one is obviously Mohamed Kudus, who gets his first goal in a Spurs shirt, and what a goal it was. And that dude is still just an absolute magician with the football at his feet. I knew Mohamed Kudus was good, obviously, the last few years at West Ham. Like, I was aware of Mohamed Kudus, even though I don't really pay that much attention to everything else going outside of Spurs, he's inevitable. And I guess I didn't really know he was this good, is my point. Like, this dude is so fun to watch, and I'm so delighted that he is at Spurs and playing right wing right now.
Same. And so we gotta chop this up because you said a bunch of awesome stuff, and these are two particular topics that I wanted to make sure that we got to cover in depth today. First and foremost, I think starting on Kudus makes sense. Your phrasing of he is inevitable is exactly how it feels with him right now. When he came into the Premier League randomly from Ajax, it was cool that you could see he wanted to move up in a level, but he's a right wing, and so is Jared Bowen, who, if I'm not mistaken, wears the armband for that particular football club.
Yeah.
And so, you just you find yourself having to slot in, get in where you fit in if you're Mohamed Kudus, and it doesn't really fit. When you gave him the opportunity to operate in the way that he is meant to operate, he is special. He is special with the football. And the fact that he plays for Spurs, and then it was only Tottenham for him, and he got the artist that Scotty name dropped on the podcast when we signed him, like, to do his hype music. Like,
I'm just thinking, Stoneboy literally wrote a song for this guy. Stoneboy is a massive worldwide artist, right? Anyways, yeah. Mohamed Kudus
is a massive worldwide right winger, Scotty. That's what's happening right now. This is what I'm saying, and he plays for Tottenham Hotspur. But I'll tell you, my guy, what's up?
No. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I was going to say I'm so glad you brought up that he was forced off of the right wing last year, pretty much for the entirety of the season by Jared Bowen, who's a great player, but there was so much talk around Kudus didn't produce last year. He was at the left wing often. He also played at the 10 quite a bit. Sure, can Muhammad Kudus play the 10? Probably, but he cannot do in the middle of the park what he's able to do when he has time and space on the wing. So
100% agree. And going back to Tell, Andrew, like, I think this time next year we're going to be talking about Matthias Tell as one of the most dangerous assets that we have in our arsenal, because this guy is somebody who thrives on confidence, as a lot of forwards do. But he's a groove player, and he hasn't had a chance to get into a groove. And all you got to do, as you mentioned, Andrew, is get off the schneid. It can, look like a deflected whatever into the net, but in your mind, it's an absolute screamer. And that just helps you have the confidence to get from where you are to where you need to be. So the fact that Thomas Frank has a history of taking no-name forwards and turning them into Ivan Toney and Brian Mbeumo is kind of a big deal. And I think that he's about to do that with Tell. And that, again, is awesome that he's doing it at Tottenham Hotspur. It's crazy. And then all of a sudden, a guy named Cole Milani, who's going to show back up after this international break as he's ready to rock and roll, apparently. And that throws an entirely different flavor into this attacking formation, which is exciting. But I don't know, Scott, what did you think of Tell?
the first thing I'll say is to everyone out there, and this is a PSA, right? To everyone who is writing Tell off, or there's plenty of Tell slander out there, right? So anyone involved, he's fucking 19 years old. He's a child. Like it baffles me as to how quickly we disregard those types of things now as fans, right? And maybe the Bergvall situation doesn't help that. Archie Gray should, right? If we're talking about these types of things, his situation should further this idea that we just need to recognize when people are children, and we need to give them time to become adults, right? And Matthias Tell's one of them, but I'll also tell you he's way ahead of the curve. Plenty of Bayern fans, as we all know from our close friendship with Caroline, understand that people thought that Kane was just getting in the way of this gem that they had in Matthias Tell, right? And of course, hindsight's 2020, and I'm sure they're all super happy that Harry Kane's at their club, right? But the point is that Matthias Tell is the real deal. He bags for fun for the French U21 team, right? He has at every level. He's a senior captain international for France, if I'm not mistaken, and he's 19 years old. And yes, that goal was a deflection, but that was a wonderful, wonderful run, close control, decision making, quick shot. He made that goal happen regardless of that deflection. So I love what I'm seeing from Tell, and I expect big things.
Well, and look, I would not be in the category of writing Tell off, but I'm certainly more on the skeptical side than most, I think. And I've really liked what I've seen these last couple of times out for him, especially this game against Leeds. I thought he was threatening and just a real presence, and that was needed in that game, obviously, because you're going up and down the field and needing that kind of effort. And he's slowly, I think, also learning. I think the biggest problem I've had is his hold-up play. Like as a striker in the central of the pitch in the Premier League, you need to have a little bit of hold-up play, and I haven't seen that out of him. And I think, to your point, I think some of that is just maturity. He'll learn. He'll grow into that. He's still growing into his body. All of those things. So I'm not. And
I think I also noticed with Tell. Sorry to interrupt you, but it really seems like we're setting ourselves up to allow our striker to make runs in behind the defense as to be expected, to hold the ball up a little bit more, right? And really you just kind of change the approach of the wings when you look for that type of, again, the word approach is overused here, but that tactical approach, right? So I think there's a time and a place tactically for Tell, as opposed to a Dom who has a bit more hold up, or even a Charleston, regardless of whether or not he can control the ball, right? He holds off his man well enough, right, to to do a decent job. But yeah, Tell will be a little different. I I want to talk about the other side of the attack because I think if there's two takeaways I really had from this game, it's that I still have never seen enough from Wilson Odebear, and I hope to. And he's young, and I'm gonna practice what I preach here, right? And say that of course we need to give him time, but I don't see enough from Odebear and Paulinia and Bentaker together is just not really my vibe. And I think
All right.
Thomas Frank will have to figure that one out.
I was gonna try and leave this alone until I started to. I was gonna try and leave Bentinker's name out of the podcast until I got to the Bodo game, but we can
Sure.
certainly dive because that is something, man. Let me first like I actually agree. Odebear is an interesting one, and I like what you said about like you're gonna practice what you preach. Odebear to me is starting to. I thought he looked good in the Bodo game, and we can start to kind of shift over to talk about what happened earlier in the week in Norway as well here, guys. But I think Odebear is growing into that left wing role. The kind of link up play that he and Xavi and Tell can present in these Premier League games, I think is could be something. And then you've got
Agreed.
Kudus on the other side who can take on multiple men at the same time and do his own
Yeah.
magician like things. Like I think that's great. I think that Odebear needs the one thing that is really missing from his game is simply decisiveness. Like he seems to get the ball and wait on what the defender's going to do before he decides what he's going to do, rather than using his talent, using his agility, his athleticism to force the defender into something. And I haven't seen enough of that decisive, like, I'm going to get the ball and, all right, let's see what we can maybe do it. No, do something with it and force that guy to make the mistake rather than
Yeah.
hold up with it. That's the biggest thing that I think Odebear needs to add to his game.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Odebear is one of those guys, Scotty, that really found his place in the championship for Burnley and had a really strong season for them when they were, I believe, right when they were coming up. And once he got up to the Premier League and in the Premier League experience that he had, he got bodied off the ball really easy. And he's a little gun shy right now. So I agree, his decisiveness is what he needs to, it's that confidence in the move, right? And your ability to execute it. And, I think as he gets older and matures a little bit more and gains a little more guile and gains a little bit more strength, like, I think he'll get better at that. But all of that requires minutes, man. And, like, I'm not sure how many minutes are going to be there for him when it's all said and done.
Well, let me ask you about that really quickly, and I do really want to shift us to Bodo and frankly to Bentancur. But if Colomani's coming back into the team right now, we obviously know the Tell Richarlison rotation that has to happen in the middle. We think Colomani might play a little bit in the middle as well, but there's opportunities for both Tell and Colomani to shift out wide. Like, what's this rotation? Because you're not moving Kudus off the right, other than for give him a blow every now and again.
Right.
But, like, what's
And
this
I think
rotation
we
going to look
learned-
like in the front?
Well, I think we learned also another one to make sure that we say is I think we learned over the last week that Xavi Simons playing anywhere other than the 10 is a waste of everybody's time and fucking effort.
I would agree.
And
Yeah.
so that kind of removes him from the rotation on the left, but then puts a little bit more like I've always maintained that I like Tell in the Premier League. I like Tell coming off the left a heck of a lot more than I like him in the middle because he gets his ass kicked
Same.
at this stage. Yeah,
I'm in the same boat.
So especially when you've got Dominic coming back, especially because they say Colomwani can score on anybody in the 9. So we'll see, buddy. We'll see how it goes.
Dude,
Fair enough.
There's a lot going on up top. I think Colomwani is our best striker, and this is just based on what I've seen from him half a season at Juventus, which for those who don't know, I watched Serie A and I watched Spurs, right? I spent a lot of time watching Serie A. I really think Colomwani is our best striker on our books. There's going to be opportunities on the left. Odebear, and again, I won't go off on a tangent here. We've talked enough about it, but the dare I say the possession black hole that's coming from the left wing when he played against Leeds is a problem. Against a better team, I think they can expose that, right, and find a way to keep the ball off Kudus, and Spurs look very easy to transition on, is what I'm trying to say, right? If you close Kudus up and you're a better team, so we got to figure out the left wing. Odebear again, young, he's very tricky, very skillful, great close control. the end product, which is what I would call what you guys are talking about, definitely comes with age. So not worried about
Yeah.
Odegaard, but right now in the short term, what do we do on the left wing? You do have Tell, you do have Kolomwani. I'm starting to think about when Madison and Kulusevski come back, what does that look like? I think Kulu might be your bang on eight under Thomas Frank. I really do. Um, we'll see. But I'm curious to see if Madison.
Wait, hold on. I'm gonna stop you there. You think Kulusevski's gonna play that deep in the midfield?
I'm starting to think he's going to play as an eight. I think he'll get time on the right. He'll have to rotate with Kudus because I think we are missing a secondary right wing at this time, and it could become a
We are.
problem. Like, God forbid, Kudus gets hurt. What does things look like, right? So Kulusevski's going to have to play there, but I also think Kulusevski can be utilized really well with Paulini behind him and Xavi Simons next to him.
That's really interesting. I had not thought about that. That's interesting.
I think anyways, we'll see, but I'm almost curious if Madison would ever get time on the left. He's not quite the Frank wing profile, but what he does have is that ability to take a man 1v1, which is really all Kudus does, albeit much better than Madison ever would, right? But I think there could be
much
some
better.
unique options. Once Kulusevski and Madison come back, I think it just adds more chaos into this conversation of what happens.
I
on the
also think
left-hand
it's
side.
it's really important to say too, though, that like we don't know what these guys are going to look like coming off of devastating knee injuries.
100%.
Like,
And I think that that's the perfect point in time that we segue into the conversation about Bentancur, Andrew.
well,
Speaking
go
of
ahead.
speaking of guys not being the same coming off of devastating knee injuries,
I think
right?
that's kind of where we are at this point, right? Like,
Yeah,
that is
like
what it looks like.
I don't mean anything disrespectful. It's just it's the guy comes back from a crushing knee injury, and then Matty Cash does his other ankle or other knee, and then he's got some sort of hip issue, and then he gets the way that they put it. It's not funny, other than to say that it's funny in term to American ears. Is he's done a racism and got put on the shelf for an extended period of time.
That's not unfair. Not unfair.
No, right?
It's interesting. Like, Scott, you brought up Bentancur and Polina playing together, and like for me, look, you're not going to hear me say many bad things about João Polina for what he's done for the start of this season. Like, I think he's been great. I think he's been what this team has needed. They needed an ass kicker in the middle, and Bentancur is not an ass kicker. Like, no. Bentancur is a pass backward.
He's a pirouetting Uruguayan.
He's just there to pass the ball back. That's all he's there for. And I too don't
stop fucking passing it backwards. I just think of Andy screaming from the side.
100%. And I don't know how Bentancur was one of he's, and look, Bentancur seems to be a favorite of a lot of different managers because
we just gave him a bunch more money to hang out for another few years.
Yeah, we did.
Here's the thing about Bentancur though. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No. I think Bentancur has hit like a Moussa Dembele stage, or maybe it's actually like a Victor Wanyama stage of his talent level at this point. Like, that's not to say that he can't still play.
We're playing him in the wrong spot. He needs to be the rotational six for when we play in the League Cup instead of being the guy who stands next to the primary six. Mm-hmm. And the problem is that for whatever reason, Pop Montasara hasn't been able to play. We don't have Kulusevski or Madison, so that rotating anybody else isn't fucking happening. We don't really have any other depth in the midfield in terms of, other than Lucas Bergvall, right? Because Lucas Bergvall is the guy that they're trying to rotate into the spot higher up the pitch instead of our favorite Uruguayan, as a rotational piece, depending on the game plan. But still, man, like, for as much as we have in the midfield, we don't have our best midfield available to us right now, and I think there's a glaring hole there for us.
I think that there's one name though that you didn't bring up who I want to see more of, and that's Archie Gray. I think Archie Gray has a chance to take some minutes from Bentancur in the next few weeks.
I hope you're right, and I mean, again, as a six. Well, and that's the thing, is that we have to. Like, this is another name that Thomas Frank, like, oh, dude, I'm going to make you a 6. Watch this. Like, that's totally how Thomas Frank has approached the Archie Gray project, and I love it. Because that's what he's supposed to be. So he's like, oh, is that what you're supposed to be? Okay, well, fucking watch this. And that's awesome. But I think having Polina there and teaching Archie how to do some Polina things is fucking awesome. I, honest to goodness, I hope we sign Polina for at least 3 years. I think that guy can be an absolute anchor for us. I love all the things that he does. Just stop trying to fucking pass the ball like you're Luka Modric, because you're fucking not. Anyhow.
Well, at least he attempts to pass the ball forward up the pitch, unlike Benjamin.
No, I'm saying, listen, pass the ball forward. I'm fine. But give it to Bergvall, give it to Sarr, give it to Simons, give it to anybody, dude. Come on.
When it comes to Bentancur, I really wanted to talk about the performance in the Bodo game, and I do want to kind of, because we've already been about halfway through the pod here, and we've talked about one game. I want to shift us a little bit more to talking about Bodo, because this game was really confusing to me, guys. I didn't quite understand the approach to it in the first half, unless it was just, let's let Kudus and Xavi like rest for a half, and then bring them on, and then we'll get into the game. But Spurs came out in this game so defensively, and it was really, really exemplified by Bentancur, because he was just sitting back there kicking the ball between Danso and Van de Ven the whole time, and Vicario for that matter. And Spurs came out looking like they wanted to sit and just absorb everything that Bodo were going to throw. I did not look. We obviously played Bodo in the semifinals last year. It was obviously a way different team because they didn't have their captain Berg in the middle. Well, they did when we played them there. They did not when we played them there. They did on the return leg, but they really know how to play on that plastic pitch. And Spurs kind of looked like they hadn't practiced on a plastic pitch because they hadn't in the days leading up to this game, and they almost just looked like shell-shocked in the early going and had to absorb so much pressure, and seriously got outplayed in this game, and were lucky to get the 2-2 draw out of it.
I don't know that I think lucky is that's a shit way to describe it. I'm just going to tell you your face.
Well, there's a missed penalty in there too we need to talk about, and that's the other part of the Bentancur. What was he doing with that challenge?
Okay, so yes, gross, awful, 100% agree. However, in years gone by, away in the Arctic Circle on a plastic pitch with ripples in the corners, we don't get out of there with a point in the Champions League. Andrew, we don't.
I agree, 100%. You're right.
You know,
and so
to show with the dub,
to show the resolve, brother, to show the resolve that we showed after giving up the fucking goals that we gave up. Blech. To get back on the scoreboard not once but twice, and get out of there and get clean from that nasty trip with a point. So no matter what else happens, because they're going to place it, somebody else is going to go there, Andrew. Another name is going to go there, and they're going to get steamrolled on that plastic pitch, because that's a hell of a team up there in Norway. And you're right, they can play, Scotty.
Dude, when you look at the lineup, that's a bang-on lineup to absorb pressure and look to break in transition against a team who's going to want to try to get forward at home. So I think that actually was our approach to this game. I mean, anytime Johnson's on the pitch, you should definitely be looking to transition quickly and break, right? I think that the biggest issue we saw in this match were on the wings. I don't think Johnson had a touch at all in his entire 65 minutes of playing in that match, right? And that puts a lot of strain on the midfield when you're trying to get out of a situation where you're absorbing pressure. So I look at the lineup, and it's clear that we all know Thomas Frank is going to be flexible and adjust his tactical approach game by game, and I think this is a lineup we'll see in those types of situations, but we just saw some shit play from the wings, and it really hurt the rest of the team, in my opinion.
That's
well,
fair.
And I think the wings that we're playing too were not. I mean, Brennan Johnson's not a dribbly boy; he's a back post tap-in merchant, and
find space behind the line.
Credit him to him for that. Like when Xavi and Kudus came on, those are dribbly boys, especially in tight spaces, and can do a lot of things on a different type of pitch. It's interesting you mentioned, they're going to take someone down. The two teams they get at home in the Champions League in the coming months they could take down as giants. November 25th they will take on Juventus, and then in January 20th they host Manchester City. So two really big opportunities for them to not actually knock someone off. They couldn't do it to Spurs, though. Only a draw, only a point against us.
That's right. Before we get out of there, Andrew, quick question. What did you think of Mickey wearing the armband?
It's interesting. I feel like you're looking at my notes. You might actually be, because I do think I've shared them with you guys. I was excited for Mickey to wear the armband, and then I thought good for him scoring a goal wearing the armband as well. And then late in that match takes an absolutely stupid yellow card after a stupid foul, and I was just like, he was up in the ref's face and yelling at him, and I'm like, what are we doing here? We're trying to earn a point on a European night away, and we're picking up needless bookings. And I just thought that was not very captainy, but overall, I like, good for Mickey. I do like that he's kind of part of this group, this leadership council that was announced this week as well. We obviously have Romero at captain. Van de Ven is part of it. Vicario is a part of it. James Maddison's also a part of it, which is interesting because we don't think we're going to see much of James Maddison on the pitch, but he was obviously part of it last time as well under a different manager, and as was Ben Davis. So Ben Davis is also a part of it because he's,
the oldest man
the uncle
in
at this
the
point.
World.
Yeah, he's the old man, so he's going to get the credit there. But yeah, I mean, look, guys, I like a point on the road. I'm not super down on the Bodo thing. It was an interesting approach in the first half. I just didn't quite expect Spurs to come out and be all like tucked in and just tails between the legs. It seemed weird to me. It seemed like they were intentionally playing defensively.
I agree that it seems like they were intentionally playing defensively, because I think they were defensively playing on purpose. I mean, so the best example that I can give you is if you've ever played a sport where you're required to play 2 matches in a week, right? Like, one of those matches, you're going to try to figure out how to conserve a little bit of energy, because you realize that you got to go again fresh in like 3 or 4 days.
Sure.
And you're going to prioritize, whichever is in your mind more important, or whichever you think you're going to, need to expend more energy in. You're going to think about that in your game plan for the 2 matches that you're looking at. So if you look at the 2 matches and how we played them and the personnel that we played and the results that we got on the way out of it, like, if you told me going into that week, hey, you're going to get a point in Norway and you're going to beat Leeds at home and be the first team to do it in over a year, right before the international break, you know what? I'd bite your hand off. Let's go.
Dude, and honestly,
I think when you zoom out, Scotty, like, it's not bad. It's not bad.
No, it's not bad at all. And we talked about it 2 weeks ago, probably on the show, that we were talking about injuries. And we said that Thomas Frank's tactical approach will mitigate injuries, right? That the wear and tear on the bodies of his players will bleed into the way that he handles his tactics. And as you just said, Todd, if I need to conserve energy, if I need to play Brennan Johnson and Wilson Odebear on the wings, if I need to go circle on a plastic pitch, wonderful opportunity to conserve energy and play defensive football. So I do agree with you 100%. That was the plan from the jump.
It's obviously only been 2 matches, but Spurs do sit 9th in the Champions League table at this point, just on goal difference out of the top 8. So they're right in the picture. There's literally one team above them that you would question, and that's Karabag, because they've won their first 2 matches in somewhat surprising fashion. But honestly, like, it's so early in the game with the Champions League, I'm not worried. Do you guys know who we play next in the Champions League? Are you aware of our next opponents?
Is it at home? Well, let me ask you this. Is
I thought it was Monaco,
or is it
maybe?
away?
It is Monaco, and our old friend
go to
Eric
Monaco.
Dyer will be
ED.
on hand for that one.
Yeah, I love that guy.
Eric Dyer scoring a penalty last week in the Champions League.
Yeah, he's a captain of Monaco. rocks up year one and
Dude,
takes the
that's not a
armband.
bad way to wrap up a career.
Dude,
After
fuck no.
hanging out in the
I'd probably
Premier
rather
League.
play for Monaco than Spurs.
Buddy, hanging out in the Premier League for almost a decade, right? After coming over from Portugal, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then taking a nice little quick stop in Germany to pick up a plate with your buddy Harry, and then to jet off to the south of France, Monaco to Monte Carlo to do big things down there. It's not terrible. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, he's chilling.
That will be Spurs' next match in the Champions League. They'll return to Premier League action the weekend before, and that'll be against Aston Villa at home. Starting with that Villa game, coming out of this international break, it will be 7 games in 20 days for Spurs, which starts with that Villa game. That stretch concludes with Manchester United at home on November 8th. So big stretch coming out of this international break for this team. A lot of games, going to need bodies on hand. And I'm excited, and also very, as you mentioned at the top, Todd, a little bit nervous about an international break with so many players going away to play actual football. 16 of them, in fact, which is just kind of mind blowing to me, quite honestly. But good for all involved. I'm happy for them. Here's the graphic that the club shared earlier today with all of the international call-ups. 16 players. Honestly, guys, coming out of this international break, I think this stretch is where we're really going to learn about Thomas Frank's Spurs, and I think it's going to be exciting, and I'm pumped for it. I'm also pumped for them to get a little healthier, which I thought was happening with Dominic Solanke, and it hasn't yet because he actually had surgery last week. It was announced, and I guess Koulibaly coming back is good. We touched on that, but the Solanke thing really sucks, man, because I thought that this guy was going to be a stud in the middle for us now, and we just don't know what's happening with this ankle now.
Yeah, I mean, they say it's a minor procedure, but as we discussed before, I've never heard of a minor ankle surgery procedure before. I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm just saying I don't know what they are. As you look at the way that the club has handled injuries in the past, it's just safe to say that he's not going to come back until you see him back training, right? And that's a depressing thing to say, but that's 100% where we're at right now. I haven't seen hide nor hair of that guy since we heard about an ankle surgery, excuse me. So, okay, we'll figure it out. We'll see when we see it. Dom get better soon. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm to the point where with both Dom and obviously Kulusevski's been in this bucket. Madison, I think, is a longer term one even than that. We'll see you when we see you kind of thing. Guys, as I go through the notebook here, we did talk about the Leadership Council. We did talk a little bit about Rodrigo Bentancur getting a new contract. Did we have any other shots we needed to get off on Rodrigo Bentancur and the new contract, or are we good? Are we just kind of
I need to the logical thing needs to be said, and we talked about this in the chat. Signing Rodrigo Bentancur makes sense to re-sign him. And the reason why is because he can do so many different things in the midfield, and he is the perfect rotational piece for Thomas Frank to utilize in all of the different formations. He's a bona fide international and a key member of a very dangerous Uruguayan team. He's a European winner with Tottenham Hotspur. And we've seen great things out of him. He's had injuries, as we've talked about on this show already, but you're not going to be able to find a like-for-like replacement for anywhere close to how much we're able to re-sign him for. So with that hometown discount, you got to make that move, and it makes perfect sense for both sides.
Bentancur has the most trophies of any player on our team in his career. He's
Facts.
I think that doesn't elevate him to like the number one midfielder on our team, but that's a guy that you don't let walk away if he's willing to stay and play whatever role he's going to play, because he can play the 6, he can play the 8, he plays the 10 for Uruguay. So the flexibility, the fact that he wants to be here. I just think there's no way you go and find someone as talented and flexible as Bentaker who wants to be at Spurs for, and then you consider the fact that there's no transfer fee and it's easy. You get the deal done. So I'm happy he's around. I will not be happy if he's starting every single match going forward, right? And we've talked about why that's happening, but the point is, I'm happy he's around as long as it's not ahead of Joppolinia, etc.
The other contract we saw given out this week was to Luka Williams-Barnett. Obviously made his debut for Spurs just last week and now gets a new deal. We love that for him.
We love that for Spurs.
Well, we love it for Spurs, of course. We love it for him, and I just want to continue to see this youth infusion as well. I think that's a really important thing to keep coming as well, which is a really big deal.
Agreed. This kid's a pure talent. As I've said before on this show, he profiles, when it's all said and done, to be closer to a 10 than to a 9. But he has a spectacular eye for goal. They play him all over the front. I like the fact that we gave him his debut. I think that it shows, like, I guess his family, Spurs. It shows a commitment to what we're doing at the youth development level from the first team staff, and that's a big statement to players, right? Like, even though he's going to go back down and play, in the under 21s or wherever, like, he has a chance to say, like, hey, you remember when Adola scored in the Europa League last year? You remember when Mikey scored? Yeah, I got to play too. Like, there's a pathway for you as well. And that's a massive statement for what we're doing. And shout to the infrastructure for continuing to build quality talent. Whether they end up at Spurs or not long term, there are quality assets developed in our academy that can be sold for profit.
Last thing in my notebook dump here before we talk about Spurs women's victory is actually a Spurs women's story, and that's the announcement of games at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for later in the season, which is a good thing. We had not gotten that announcement as of yet, but Spurs women did announce they are going to play February 8th against Chelsea at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. They'll play March 15th against Everton there, and also April 26th against Manchester United. So we love to see more games at the stadium. I think that's an important thing. Would love to see the atmosphere at Brisbane Road be, something as well. But obviously the games at the stadium will attract fans to come out because that's where they're used to going for games, which is a good thing. Spurs women are off to an incredible start in the WSL. I think we can safely say that now. They won again on Sunday, winning at home against Brighton 1-0. Another goal from Tinka Tanberg, this one coming in the 71st minute on what was just a brilliant cross from Jess Naz. Really cool that this match started with a little bit of a moment for the club wearing T-shirts in support of Jess Naz after she suffered racial abuse last week. And then they did not take the knee and kind of stated why that was. I just thought it was an interesting and powerful set of words from the club as a collective. And then they went out and I just thought put together a really comprehensive performance against Brighton. Mm-hmm. It was like the most controlled, but also forward-thinking 1-0 victory, also for having less possession than Brighton actually did. Like, they used the ball so well, and I'm really, look, we all know that they're not who their next opponent is, Chelsea. Like, this club is not Chelsea. This club is not even City or Arsenal, dare I say. But, like, we're seeing small incremental signs already of what Martin Ho is able to do with this team, Scott.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, you already said the name, but Tinka Tanberg is just a fucking G. That girl,
yeah,
I am wildly impressed with what I've seen from her. She's strong, she's physical, which those are two very different things, right? But she's both of them. She's just a natural finisher, seems to be strong with both feet. Like, she honestly can do it all. Like, every striker profile I think of, right, from Fox in the box to target player, whatever, she fits the mold. So I'm really, really pleasantly surprised by how good she's been. Jess Naz has been a revelation. I almost want to say like moving her to the right was so shrewd, which it was, but that assist comes from the left side. So I want to
Yeah.
choose my words carefully, right? But
Well,
I think
the
putting her
incredible thing is that no matter where she is, she can play out
yeah,
wide so well. Like she can play both
100%.
sides.
She's been great. We've already talked about it, Beth in the 10 with just that license to roam. Like just if if you're in the current situation Spurs are in, Spurs women, you barely survive relegation, you're just kind of floating lost at sea. Take your best player, put her in the middle of the park and say go play football. And that's I think what Martin has done with Beth England and it's worked really well. Then I look at Sumanen and Spence. That's just a really like sturdy, tried and true double pivot that has played together for a long time. It makes a lot of sense. But for me, it all goes down to Koga. That girl
Thank you for
is
saying it.
so fucking good. And I'm her and Tinka both, right? I'm dropping
Well,
F bombs on both of these ladies today, but
it's Scotty. It's incredible that this club we bitched and moaned all summer that Spurs women were not doing anything. They made two signings this summer. That's it, two of them, and they have both been the absolute linchpins
bang
for
on
the first
signings. Yeah.
well, 6 games if you include the League Cup game. The first 6 matches they've been incredible.
Well, you haven't
Like
even said my favorite player throughout this entire thing. That's Amanda Nilden from Sweden. Like she absolutely
been really
crushed it.
good.
She's been really good all season too. You're right.
It's been easily her best effort in a Spurs kit, and it's really exciting to see what she's been able to do under Martino.
it's funny you bring her name up because my one question mark is who rotates with Nilden. And that's the one thing that I think he's going to have to figure out because fullbacks have to rotate. Rybrink and Ash Neville on the right. Again, Rybrink has really surprised me at right fullback. She's done a really good job. So I think you got the rotation. Again, in the center of the park, I got to go back to Koger for a second. She has allowed Claire Hunt to be the player that I think we all thought Claire Hunt could be. Claire Hunt is just she can really just be that like that redwood tree center back. You know, she's tall, she's strong, she's not super fast. Just be that central defender and let and let Koga just clean everything up. Her spatial awareness, her speed, her calmness on the ball. I mean, she can really do whatever Claire Hunt can't do, and the two of them complement each other super well.
There was a really early moment in this match where Tokokoga went down, and it looked like almost had committed a penalty. She slipped, basically, with the ball at her feet and went down. Looked like almost she fell on top of the ball and almost was a handball in the box, and then the Brighton player came toppling over top of her. It very easily could have been a penalty in any other different context. I don't think it was. I think it was just a coming together with Koga losing her feet. But then Koga was down for a little bit, and I was freaking out. And I didn't watch this game live. It was on because it was on at the before the ass crack of dawn where I live. I watched it later on a replay, but I was freaking out watching Koga go down because I was like, no, don't let this happen, because she has been just, you said it, she's been incredible, and I do think even though Tinka Tandberg came in very late in the window, I think even on deadline day, she's jumped right in and has really given, you said the word, physicality. She has a different type of physicality than we've seen from any player in a long time for Spurs women. It's really, really
Yeah, you see those. You see those strikers, and Todd, you know all about it as well, but there are some strikers who just love smashing bodies with defenders, and they like go out and they just like they're a missile, just like looking for opportunities to deal body blows, and that's exactly what she's done. It's a wonderful quality. And then I do also have to say, like, she's a name that's not going to come up very often, but Holt has also been quietly very good opposite Jess Nash. She's putting in good balls, I think, especially to the back post, but she's not super fancy. She's not like your tricky winger, but she's just done a really good, solid, steady job, I think, opposite of Jess Nash, and probably offered just more than anything attention to defenders and using her spacing correctly to let some of the focus come off of Jess Naz on the right flank too. So I got to shout her out.
You mentioned Neville too. This was her first start of the season, so good to see her back in the mix and had a good performance as well. I just, like I said, the goal came in the 26th minute, and Spurs held on to a 1-0 lead for the vast majority of this game, and I just thought it was a very controlled and good performance. Like, at no point was I super fearful of losing. There was a chance and a half or two late, but like, Spurs women were just really, really in control of this match throughout, and I was pumped about it. Now, it is likely going to be a little harder next week as Spurs will travel.
Why? What happens?
To face Chelsea.
What? Oh, shit.
Yeah. Chelsea's on the horizon, so we'll see how it goes. But as of right now, Spurs are sitting third in the WSL after 5 matches. And look, I know 5 matches a season does not make, but it's been a good start. So we like to see it. I'm a fan of all of it. So Chelsea next week, and we'll see what happens. I mean, it's a free hit. That's the kind of the way you got to look at it, I think. So.
Yeah, one last thing that I wanted to make sure as we move, I agree. One last thing that I wanted to make sure we got a chance to chat about as we kind of move away from the Spurs women is, did you see that our boy Luka Vuskovic was awarded the Bundesliga Rookie of the Month award?
Oh, nice.
I did not
for
see that.
his effort at Hamburg. So shout out to that guy.
You know, I did not see that, and it gives me a good idea for next week, Todd. I think we do need to do a little bit of a loan roundup with the international break here. I think we should look into that, and we'll try to compile some stuff for next week to talk, because that is, you brought up his name, and I thought, oh, that's a great little tidbit there. I did not know that, so thanks for bringing that to my attention.
Yeah, no worries. My favorite part about him is he has an attribute that Scott likes to refer to as not super fast. And I appreciate his efforts, given the fact that he is also not super fast.
Oh, gosh, I love that.
Look, man, if you want to talk about not super fast, I can talk about being not super fast, trust me.
For real, though, on Vuskovic, like, it is just, and back to the men's side of the club, right? It is insane how much young talent we have at this football club right now. It's so easy to just look past, right? But we've said so many names today, we won't go through them again. But everybody knows what I'm saying. But it's insane, and I got to give the club credit for changing their approach. I think last season they went like 100 yards past the mark, but they're backtracking a little bit, and they're learning.
They've evened it
But
out.
the way that we're evening it out, exactly. But the way that we've just
they're giving 28-year-old Rodrigo Bentancur a new contract. I mean,
listen,
a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Hold on. I think what we saw is, and what we've been seeing actually, is that the Ange style of football isn't sustainable in the Premier League.
Whoa,
and
buddy.
I know a certain friend of mine, you may know him, Scott. His name's Andrew. He once said, I don't think this shit's sustainable in the Premier League. And, so
Is it? Let me. All right, we're gonna end on this. Has it been weird for you guys to watch this happen to Ange? Because I feel a little awkward watching it happen. I'm certainly not relishing in it. Not that I care if Forrest goes down. Like I couldn't give two shits. But I'm certainly not relishing in it. But a little bit of me is like, I'm really glad. Not that we got out when we did. I'm not trying to put it that way, but like, I'm glad that this is not still what we're going through, because
I'm glad this is not my life.
I am, because it feels like we had an opportunity there to move on to a different track, and we took that different track, and I think it was the right time to do so.
Dude, honestly, it's like breaking up with your clingy high school girlfriend before you go to college, not because you don't love her anymore, but because you know it's best for the both of you in the long run. Like,
and because you really want to hit the books when you get to college, you really want to focus on the studying.
I'm just saying it's a lot, and sometimes you got to make a hard decision, right? And you take one step backwards so you can take two steps forwards, or whatever the saying is. I'm just telling you, I'm really glad that that's not our life. I'm glad that that our football team hasn't lost 7 games in a row. Instead, we are unbeaten in our last 7 matches. So I'm going to take that as a win. We won going into an international break. The fuck This is incredible stuff.
Dude,
Don't know how to feel.
honestly,
Don't know what to do with my hands.
it's you couldn't have written the script any better with Ange Postecoglou. He comes to Spurs, absolutely like lights everything on fire for 9 games in a row, then lights his own team on fire for the next 18 months probably, burns out in flames, wins a European trophy for Tottenham, who were allergic to trophies for the longest time, right? Just it's just so poetically fitting
Calls his
what happened.
shot on the way out.
He reached
You know,
into
seriously?
the he reached into the fire and grabbed that one really valuable thing that we liked and pulled it out for us and said, "Here you go." But the rest of it's still ablaze.
Dude, and then now he like we had Pochettino who would say things in press conferences like, if the cow looks at the moon clockwise with the left eye closed, then you know that the chickens are roosting, and we'd all be like, "What the fuck did that guy just say?" All right, whatever. We're playing pretty good, so we're just gonna move on from that, right? And then you see Ange Postecoglou who's saying like, "Yeah, I go onto the playground and pick fights with people all the time. I'm always ready." I don't know if you guys saw his press conference yesterday or the day before, but it was easily the wildest Ange Postecoglou press conference I've ever seen.
Honestly, this is kind of what I'm talking about, Scott. Like watching this from our positions is so awkward for me. Like
It's
feel
wild.
like I'm watching like a soap opera that I used to be a part of, and it's not. I don't know.
Crazy X's new relationship. You're like, oh, I remember that shit. Good thing that's not me.
Oh man, it's
so great.
It's interesting times, gentlemen. All right, I think that's gonna do it for this episode of the Tottenham Depot. Before we get any any more barbs off, I don't want. I feel bad, man. I feel bad. Be sure to check out your.
Hold on. Why do you feel bad before you throw tags out there? Why?
Because I'm trying not to throw Ange under the bus. The man won us a European
No.
trophy.
The Ange walked in front of the fucking bus. He knew who Marinakis was.
You're right.
I've literally, one of my favorite quotes, and I don't remember where it came from, is I was having a conversation, and so I'll tell it in the first person because I don't remember who to attribute it to. So I was having a conversation with this guy that was very, very rich and powerful, and we were good friends. But every time I interacted with him, I watched him treat his employees like dog shit. And I remember looking at him in the face at one point in time, and he asked me why I didn't come and work for him. And I said, well, why would I want to ruin a perfectly good friendship by working for you? And that's like it's kind of how I look at Marinakis is, you know who the fuck that guy is. You know what he's about. Like, why would you agree? Oh, because you wanted $13 million a year or whatever the fuck Angie's getting paid? Okay, well then, I mean, you do what you want to do. Like, now you got to look at the angry Bluto from Popeye every time you lose the fucking leads at home or whatever. Like, good luck.
Well, and here's the last thing I'll say about Ange too. The other thing that he said at his press conference that is that he's always up for a fight, and I believe that because he used to pick the fights, and he always wants to take on a challenge. And look, he did it at Spurs. I don't know that he's going to have the same luck that he did at Spurs at Forest, but Mazel tov, like have fun, my friend. Like if you like a challenge, you certainly have yourself one there.
Well, I honestly think that there's a legitimate chance, Scotty, that he's going to win a trophy in his second season, and it's going to be in the championship. I think that's fairly accurate.
Might happen.
I think that they could very well get relegated this year, but the interesting thing that I took away from all of this too, and I think I read an article that at least alluded to this idea at the end of the article or mentioned it, right? But I completely agree. He talks so much about how this was always going to be a challenge. This was always going to be a dogfight. Like, it didn't have to be a dogfight or a challenge this year for Nottingham Forest. Like, they were legitimately fucking good last year, and they signed Dan Ndoye, who was easily one of the best players in Serie A last year. They re-signed Morgan Gibbs-White. They brought in more players. I don't pay attention enough to Forest to tell you who they are, right? But they improved their squad, is my point. It did not have to be this like crazy us against the world dogfight, epic battle for the ages. Like, they could have just kept being good. And they brought in a guy who unfortunately just like can't seem to perform in the Premier League tactically, right? And it's a wild situation. Just wild decisions made.
Dude, it's just really hard to play burn the boats football when you're expected to play 65 matches or whatever every year.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what they're going to do because they're in the Europa League again. That's the way it goes. Well, not again. Ange's in the Europa League again. All right, guys. That is going to do it for this edition of the Tottenham Depot. Be sure to check out our episodes on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Tottenham Depot. Leave us a rating and review on your podcast app of choice. You can follow us on the socials at Tottenham Depot. You can also follow Todd at TC_Kasho. You can follow Scott at ScottGBird. You can follow me at AStetka. But more importantly, of course, follow us at Tottenham Depot on the socials. This has been the Tottenham Depot podcast. As always, come on, you Spurs.